September is here, and for many gardeners, it's a time of harvest and well-deserved rest. But not for your garlic. Right now, in early autumn, is when you lay the groundwork for a truly abundant harvest of this essential crop next year. Do you think simply burying a clove in the ground is all it takes? Today, I'll reveal why September is the crucial month for your garlic and what secrets will transform your modest garden beds into a veritable garlic haven. For garlic, autumn isn't the end of the season. It's truly the beginning. We're talking about winter garlic, the kind you plant in the fall to overwinter. This method yields large, juicy bulbs much earlier than spring-planted varieties. But to get it right, you need to be smart about it because fall planting is an art and a science, full of its own intricacies and subtle rules. So where do you even start when aiming for a great harvest? With the absolute first step, picking the perfect location. Think of it as the foundation for all your future success. A misstep here can undo all your hard work later, no matter how diligently you tend to your plants. Garlic is a true sun lover. It absolutely craves maximum light for photosynthesis. The more sun energy your plants get, the bigger and juicier your garlic heads will be. If you plant it in the shade, it will grow, sure, but the heads will be small, loose, and the individual cloves might be underdeveloped. Such a harvest won't store well and will lack that robust flavour we all love. So, right now, take a stroll around your garden plot. Observe where the sun lingers the longest, especially during the afternoon hours. The ideal spot is an open area, unshaded by your house, fences, or tall trees. Remember that in autumn, the sun sits lower in the sky, casting longer shadows. That sunny spot in July might be half dark by October. And one more crucial point, your chosen spot needs to be not just sunny, but also dry. Garlic absolutely detests standing water. If your bed is in a low-lying area where rainwater collects, the cloves could simply rot away over winter. If your entire garden tends to be a bit damp, don't despair. Simply build a raised bed for your garlic. This will solve the issue perfectly. So remember these key points. Find the brightest, best draining spot in your garden. This is your launch pad for a truly record-breaking harvest. Alright, you've picked your spot. But now, let's look at the history of that particular bed. What grew there this past summer? This is an idle curiosity. The health of your future garlic crop directly depends on it. Remember this golden rule. Never plant garlic after its closest relatives, onions, or other garlic crops. Why? Think of it this way. They share common family diseases and common pests. Over the season, specific pathogens and pest larvae, which absolutely love allium crops, accumulate in the soil. Planting garlic in the same spot is like sending it into an ambush, where diseases and hungry pests are already waiting. Such a crop is unlikely to be healthy or produce large, robust bulbs. So, who makes the best companion for garlic? Who can perfectly prepare the soil for it? That would be crops from different plant families. Cucumbers, zucchini, pumpkins, and pattypan squash are considered excellent predecessors. These crops typically receive a lot of organic matter, leaving the soil loose and nutrient-rich after their harvest. Legumes like peas, beans, and broad beans are also fantastic choices. They act like little magicians, enriching the soil with nitrogen, something garlic absolutely loves. Early cabbage and cover crops, also known as green manures, are also excellent options. This practice is called crop rotation, and it's not just a fancy term. It's the very foundation of a healthy garden. Choosing the right predecessor ensures your garlic will be strong, healthy, and won't waste energy fighting for survival. We've chosen the perfect spot and reviewed its history. Now it's time to tackle the most crucial element, the soil itself. Think of it as preparing a cozy winter home for our garlic, because how comfortable it is will determine everything. Garlic absolutely thrives in light, loose, well-aerated soil. Imagine a fluffy blanket. That's precisely the kind of texture you're aiming for. In soil like this, its tender roots can breathe easily and spread freely, allowing the bulbs to grow without any resistance and reach their full size and weight. What garlic can't stand, however, is heavy, clay-rich soil that turns into sticky mud after rain and a rock-hard slab during dry spells. In these conditions, roots suffocate, water stagnates, and the plant expends all its energy just trying to survive, rather than growing. How do you check your soil? It's super simple. Grab a handful of moist soil and squeeze it in your fist. If the clump easily crumbles apart, you've got excellent suitable soil. But if you're left with a dense, hard brick, your soil definitely needs improvement. Don't worry, it's not a difficult task. To fluff up heavy soil, incorporate a bucket of coarse sand and a bucket of peat or well-rotted compost for every square metre of your planting bed. After adding these, dig everything in thoroughly to the depth of a spade. And here's a crucial tip. Do this at least 2 to 3 weeks before your planting day, not on the day itself. This gives the soil time to settle. Otherwise, your garlic cloves might end up planted too deeply. So, with our soil now wonderfully loose and light, it's time to feed it. Think of it like sending your garlic on a long winter journey. It needs a good store of nutrients to survive the cold, establish strong roots, and burst into growth come spring. But there's a crucial rule here. Fertilise correctly in the fall. The biggest mistake many gardeners make is using fresh manure. While it might seem like the ultimate natural fertiliser, for winter garlic, it's practically poison. Fresh manure can trigger fungal diseases and rot, attract pests, and it contains far too much aggressive nitrogen. This excess nitrogen will encourage top growth in the fall, which is exactly what we don't want. Garlic needs to focus on rooting, not sprouting foliage. Garlic that sprouts prematurely will simply freeze and die over winter. So, what should you use instead? Your best friend here is well-rotted compost or aged manure, ideally at least 2 years old. This is where all the essential nutrients are in an ideal, easily absorbed form for your plants. Aim for about 1 bucket of this rich amendment per square metre of your planting bed. If compost isn't available, you can use a balanced fall or autumn mineral fertiliser. These fertilisers are specially formulated with higher levels of phosphorus and potassium, which are crucial for root development and winter hardiness, while nitrogen content is kept to a minimum. Always apply it strictly according to the package directions. Proper autumn fertilisation of your garlic bed is your guarantee that come spring, your garlic will emerge strong, healthy, and ready for robust growth. Our garden bed is all set, loose, fertile, and just waiting for its new occupants. Now it's time to focus on the most important thing, our planting material. This is where the simplest, yet most crucial gardening rule comes into play. You reap what you sow. You can't expect to grow giant garlic from a small diseased clove. So approach this stage with the utmost care. Let's bring out our harvest, which we've carefully stored since summer, and begin a strict selection process. We only need the very best heads. What exactly are we looking for? First, they must be the largest. Size truly matters. The larger the parent bulb, the greater the genetic potential of its individual cloves. Second, they must be absolutely healthy. Carefully inspect each head from every angle. There should be no spots, no dents, and absolutely no signs of mould or rot. The basal plate must be dry and clean. Any head that raises even the slightest suspicion should be ruthlessly discarded. You can still use it for cooking, but never for planting. Don't hesitate. A single diseased head, once planted, can become a source of infection for all the others. Remember, we are practicing selection here. By consistently choosing only the best for planting year after year, we gradually improve the varietal qualities of our own homegrown garlic. This simple technique will allow you to consistently achieve high yields over time with minimal effort. You are literally cultivating your very own elite planting stock, perfectly adapted to your specific growing conditions. Okay, you've selected the best of the best garlic bulbs. What's next? Now comes a crucial stage, separating the bulb into its individual cloves. And here's a vital tip many people overlook. You should only separate the cloves from the bulb right before planting, ideally on the same day. At most, a day beforehand. Whatever you do, never separate them a week or two in advance. Why is this timing so critical? While the cloves are still nestled together in the whole bulb, they're protected by those tough outer wrappers. The moment we separate them, we inevitably damage the basal plate of each clove. That's the crucial spot where the roots will emerge. This tiny wound becomes an open invitation for soil-borne infections. What's more, without the protection of the whole bulb's jacket, that basal plate quickly starts to dry out. A dried-out basal plate struggles to form roots effectively. Such a clove will take a long time and have great difficulty rooting, if it manages to root at all. When separating the bulb, be gentle. Try not to damage the outer skin of the individual cloves. Start by carefully peeling away the outermost toughest, papery layers. Then gently, with a little controlled pressure, separate the cloves from each other, beginning with the ones on the outside. Once separated, carefully inspect each individual clove again. It should feel firm and heavy, with no visible damage, soft spots, or signs of mould or rot. Set aside any small, shriveled, doubled, or damaged cloves immediately. These are perfect for the kitchen. Only ideal, flawless cloves make it into the soil. We've broken down the garlic heads and now we have a wonderful bounty of cloves. But if you look closely, you'll notice they're all different sizes. Some are large, even heroic in size, typically from the outer ring. Others are medium, usually found in the middle. And this brings us to another secret of professional growers: calibration or sorting by size. Many home gardeners simply mix all their cloves together and plant them indiscriminately. What happens then? The larger cloves produce vigorous sprouts, develop rapidly, and quickly begin to outcompete their smaller neighbours, hogging light and nutrients. As a result, your harvest will be uneven. You'll find giant heads here and there, but right next to them, you'll have tiny ones. To avoid this, you just need to dedicate 5 minutes to sorting. Separate all your prepared cloves into 3 piles: large, medium, and small. This seemingly simple step offers significant rewards. We'll plant each size group in its own bed or dedicated row. This approach ensures that all plants within a row develop under uniform conditions, free from competition. Your sprouts will emerge uniformly and vigorously. Maintaining such a bed becomes much easier, and most importantly, your harvest will be consistent and uniform. Large cloves will produce the biggest, show-stopping heads. Medium cloves will yield excellent standard-sized garlic, and smaller cloves will give you smaller heads, perfect for preserving or cooking. Calibration is your key to a predictable, high-quality harvest. After sorting our garlic cloves and dividing them by size, we're often left with a handful of the smallest ones. Your first thought might be to toss them into a soup or simply discard them. But hold on a minute. These little guys are actually valuable planting material if you know how to use them effectively. It's true that planting them alongside larger cloves in your main bed isn't ideal. They won't develop into big, multi-cloved heads and would likely just be overshadowed by their more robust neighbours. However, they serve a crucial alternative purpose. These small cloves, when planted, will grow into what we call single-clove garlic bulbs, often referred to as solitaires the following year. These are small, round bulbs, much like a shallot, but made up of a single, solid clove. And here's the secret. These single-clove bulbs are considered the absolute best, healthiest, and most elite planting material you could possibly wish for. If you plant one of these single-clove bulbs next fall, you are virtually guaranteed to harvest a very large, multi-cloved garlic head. This process is an excellent way to rejuvenate and strengthen your garlic stock. So how do we handle these tiny cloves right away? Set aside a small, dedicated row for them, perhaps at the end of a bed or along an edge. You can plant them much closer together than your main garlic, about 5 to 7 centimetres, 2 to 3 inches apart. By next summer, you'll be harvesting a bounty of these ideal single-clove bulbs. Not only does this prevent waste, but it also lays the foundation for truly exceptional garlic harvest down the line. Our garlic cloves have been carefully selected, sized, and are ready for planting. There's just one crucial step left: pre-planting treatment. Some gardeners skip this, leaving it to chance or hoping for the best. But that's like sending a child to school in autumn without their vaccinations. Possible, yes, but extremely risky. Soil is far from a sterile environment. It's teeming with microorganisms, and not all of them are friendly. Fungal spores and bacteria are constantly waiting to attack defenseless cloves. The primary goal of this treatment, sometimes referred to as clove treatment or seed treatment, is to create a protective barrier on the clove surface. This barrier will shield it from diseases during its most vulnerable initial stages of growth. So how do we achieve this? There are several proven methods. The simplest and most accessible involves a potassium permanganate or permanganate of potash solution. Prepare a saturated dark pink solution and soak the cloves for 20 to 30 minutes. It's an old school, tried and true technique that remains highly effective. A more modern and reliable option is to use specialized biological fungicides, such as those based on Bacillus subtilis, often called hay bacillus or trichoderma. These beneficial microorganisms don't just disinfect, they actively colonize the clove surface, offering ongoing protection against future pathogens. Chemical fungicides like Maxim can also be used. Regardless of your chosen method, always soak the cloves in the solution, prepared strictly according to the product's instructions, for the recommended time. After soaking, plant them immediately without rinsing or allowing them to dry. This straightforward process will take no more than half an hour of your time, but it will allow you to rest easy, knowing your future crop is thoroughly protected. With all the preparatory work behind us, we've arrived at the most critical stage, determining the perfect planting time. This is arguably the trickiest and most debated question. Pick a specific date, and you're bound to be wrong, because our country is vast, and the climate varies dramatically from region to region. What works perfectly for southern areas will be completely unsuitable for Siberia or the Urals. Therefore, your guide shouldn't be the calendar, but rather the current weather and meteorologist forecasts. There's one golden rule: winter garlic should be planted 3 to 4 weeks before the onset of consistent hard frosts, when the ground is expected to freeze permanently to a depth of several centimetres, a few inches. What needs to happen during this window? The most crucial thing is for the clove to establish its roots. It needs to develop a strong root system that firmly anchors it in the soil. These roots will nourish it throughout winter and ensure a vigorous start in spring. What it absolutely should not do, however, is sprout. If green shoots emerge from the soil, they will almost certainly die from frost, and the plant will then waste precious time and energy in spring recovering, ultimately affecting the size of the bulb. So how do you pinpoint this ideal moment? Keep an eye on the thermometer. Once the soil temperature at a depth of 5 to 7 centimetres, 2 to 3 inches, consistently drops to 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, 50 to 54 degrees, and forecasts indicate a gradual cooling trend with no sudden warm spells ahead. That's your cue to start planting. For temperate regions, this typically falls between late September and mid-October. But remember, no 2 years are exactly alike. Ultimately, nature and common sense are your best guides. With our planting dates set and shovels in hand, it's time to dig those planting holes. And this is where many gardeners, especially beginners, make a crucial mistake: planting their garlic too shallow. They might think this makes it easier for the sprout to emerge in spring, but in reality, it's quite the opposite. Planting too shallow is almost a guaranteed recipe for winter kill. During winter, the top layer of soil freezes the hardest. If the base of the clove is too close to the surface, the frost will simply kill it. So, what's the ideal planting depth? There's a simple, brilliant rule that's easy to remember. Plant your garlic 3 times as deep as the clove is tall, measured from its base to its tip. Take a clove in your hand. Let's say it's 2 centimetres tall. This means you need to plant it so that an additional 4 centimetres of soil cover its tip. The total depth of the planting hole, in this case, would be 6 centimetres. If you have a larger clove, say 3 centimeters tall, your planting depth should be 9 centimeters. This universal method works for any size of planting material. Making consistently deep holes is actually quite simple. Just take a shovel handle or a simple stick and make a mark at the desired depth. This ensures all your cloves are planted at the correct safe level, well protected from winter frosts. Remember, it's always better to plant a little deeper than too shallow. This is the key to successful overwintering and a healthy spring harvest. We've pinpointed the ideal planting depth, but what happens if you go too deep? That's the other extreme, and it can be just as detrimental to your harvest. Some gardeners, fearing frost, bury their garlic cloves quite deep, sometimes 15-20 centimetres, about 6 to 8 inches. While this might seem safer, this approach has significant drawbacks. Firstly, in spring, a deeply planted clove will expend far more energy and time for its sprout to push its way up to the surface and reach sunlight. It will deplete a significant portion of the stored nutrients within the clove, not for bulb formation, but simply to complete this arduous journey to the surface. Consequently, these plants will lag significantly behind their counterparts planted at the optimal depth. Secondly, deeper soil layers warm up much more slowly in the spring. While soil at the ideal depth of 5 to 7 centimetres, about 2 to 3 inches, is already warm and stimulating growth, at 15 centimetres, 6 inches, down, it can remain cold and damp. In these conditions, the clove can simply rot away before it even has a chance to sprout. And even if it does manage to sprout, the resulting bulb might be deformed and elongated. It will have stretched upwards, which negatively impacts its appearance. So, as with most things, balance is key here. The 3-clove height rule truly represents that golden mean, offering both crucial frost protection and ensuring a rapid, robust start in the spring. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Simply trust this time-tested method. Our planting holes are perfectly dug and ready. Now let's talk about the proper way to arrange our garlic cloves, our little soldiers, in these trenches. The spacing between individual cloves is another crucial factor that directly impacts the size of your future garlic bulbs. Planting them too closely together is a surefire way to end up with a small, disappointing harvest. The plants simply won't have enough space, light, or nutrients. They'll compete fiercely with each other, their leaves shading out neighbours, and their roots intertwining in a desperate battle for moisture and sustenance. In such cramped conditions, growing large, healthy bulbs is simply impossible. On the other hand, planting them too sparsely isn't ideal either, as you'd be wasting valuable garden space. So what's the sweet spot? Experienced gardeners recommend leaving about 10-15 centimetres, approximately 4 to 6 inches, between large and medium cloves within the row. You can use the width of your palm as a handy guide. This spacing provides ample room for each plant to develop a strong root system and a generous rosette of leaves without crowding its neighbours. As for the distance between the rows themselves, often called inter-row spacing, it's best to allow a bit more room, around 20-25 centimetres, about 8 to 10 inches. This isn't so much for the plant's direct benefit as it is for your convenience. Wider rows make it easy for you to cultivate the soil, remove weeds, and apply fertilizers throughout spring and summer, all without risking damage to those delicate garlic leaves. A well-planned planting scheme ensures your garlic plants will feel comfortable, thrive, and fully realize their potential, leading to a bountiful harvest. We've marked our spots, and now comes the crucial moment, placing the clove into its hole. It seems simple enough, doesn't it? Yet this is precisely where many go wrong, making a mistake that won't kill the plant, but will definitely prevent it from reaching its full potential. The clove must be planted strictly upright with its root end facing down. The root end is that flat, slightly rough surface from which the roots will emerge. If you look closely, you might even spot tiny bumps on it. These are the beginnings of the future rootlets. The pointed tip, naturally, should face upwards. This is where the green shoot will sprout. So, what happens if you plant a clove on its side, or even worse, upside down? Garlic is incredibly resilient. It will still sprout. The shoot, driven by nature's instinct, will bend in an arch underground and eventually find its way to the sun. But this acrobatic feat will cost it an enormous amount of energy that should have been spent forming a large, beautiful bulb. As a result, the garlic bulb will grow crooked, misshapen, and certainly smaller than it could have been. So, take your time. Gently pick up each clove and carefully place it into the hole, root end resting on the bottom. There's no need to force it firmly into the soil, especially if the ground is dense. Doing so can damage the root plate and the developing roots. Just set it in place and gently cover it with soil to keep it securely in the correct position. This small detail makes all the difference. It's your investment in the future, beauty and size of your harvest. With your garlic cloves carefully placed and the bed almost prepared, a natural question comes to mind. Do I need to water them? The answer isn't as simple as it seems, and really depends on your specific soil conditions and the autumn weather. If you've had a dry September, and your soil has become dusty and parched after extensive preparation, then watering is absolutely essential. Dry soil hinders rapid root development, prolonging the establishment process and potentially leaving your garlic unprepared for the winter. In this scenario, after you've covered the cloves with soil, gently water the bed using a watering can with a fine rose. Aim for moderate watering. You're looking to dampen the soil, not create a bog. Our goal is simply to moisten the soil to the depth of the cloves, providing a comfortable environment for them to start rooting. However, the situation is completely different if autumn has been rainy and the soil in your garden is already naturally moist and heavy. In this case, additional watering will do more harm than good. Excess moisture, especially combined with cool autumn temperatures, creates ideal conditions for various rots and moulds to thrive. The cloves could simply rot in the ground before they even get a chance to root. So, if your soil is already sufficiently moist, it's best to skip watering altogether. The garlic will have plenty of moisture from the ground itself. This is the golden rule for autumn planting. It's always better to slightly underwater than to overwater. With the garlic planted and watered as needed, you might think you're done until spring. But not so fast. There's one crucial final step, one that acts like a warm, protective blanket for our garlic: mulching. So, what exactly is mulch? It's a layer of organic material we spread over the surface of our garden beds. Why bother, you ask? First off, it's paramount for frost protection. A good layer of mulch creates an insulating air pocket. This helps to soften those sharp temperature drops and keeps the soil from freezing too deeply, particularly during those brutal, snowless cold snaps. Under this cosy blanket, our garlic will winter over as snug as a bug in a rug. Secondly, mulch keeps a hard crust from forming on the soil surface. The earth beneath it remains consistently loose and well aerated. And third, come spring, the mulch acts as a natural weed suppressor, significantly cutting down on your weeding chores. So, what can you use for mulching? You've got plenty of options. Peat moss, mature compost, or well-rotted manure are excellent choices. Aim for a layer about 5 to 7 centimetres, or 2 to 3 inches, thick. Dry fallen leaves. Just be sure they're not from diseased fruit trees. Straw, dried grass clippings, or even pine needles also make fantastic mulch. For these lighter materials, you'll want a thicker layer, around 10 to 15 centimetres, or 4 to 6 inches, as they'll settle and compress over time. When should you apply this protective layer? Don't jump the gun right after planting. Give the soil a little time to cool down. The absolute best time to mulch your bed is when you start experiencing those first consistent night frosts. That's your undeniable signal that winter is truly on its way and it's time to tuck in our precious garlic. Let's take a step back and discuss the preparation of the individual cloves. There's a piece of advice you often hear circulating on gardening forums. It suggests that before planting, you should always clean off, or even completely trim, the old, dry roots at the base of the clove. The reasoning behind this advice is that old roots are dead anyway, and they'll only get in the way of new growth. While that sounds logical, doing this is actually a big mistake. Even though these dry root remnants are no longer alive, They serve a very important mechanical function. They act as a kind of anchor. When you place a clove into loose soil, these roots help it grip the soil and remain upright. If the base is completely smooth, or shaved as some call it, the clove can easily fall over sideways when you cover it with soil. As we've mentioned before, this will lead to a crooked sprout and a misshapen garlic bulb. Furthermore, any manipulation of the base creates micro-injuries that can become entry points for infection. Nature designed it this way for a reason. New, live roots will easily grow right through the old base. It won't hinder them in the slightest. So leave the base untouched. The only thing you need to do is gently separate the individual clove from the main bulb. No other manipulations with this area are necessary. Don't create extra work for yourself or expose your planting material to unnecessary risk. Let's debunk a very common and persistent myth that could easily cost you your entire harvest. It often happens that you don't have enough of your own seed garlic, or maybe you're planting garlic for the very first time, and that's when it becomes tempting to pop into the nearest supermarket and grab a few of those beautiful large bulbs of imported or just regular grocery store garlic. It seems like a brilliant idea. They're so big, so perfectly uniform, so pristine white. But this is a trap. The chances of anything worthwhile growing from such garlic are incredibly slim. Why? Here's the kicker. Practically all garlic sold in major supermarkets, especially if it's imported from afar, undergoes a special treatment. It's processed with growth inhibitors, chemicals that suppress or completely block the clove's ability to sprout. This is done to ensure it has a longer shelf life in warehouses and on store shelves, keeping it looking fresh and saleable for months. This kind of garlic can sit for ages without even thinking about putting out a root. If you plant it, you'll most likely just be burying your money. It will either not sprout at all, or it will produce very weak, stunted shoots that will never develop into a proper, healthy bulb. So, here's the golden rule. For planting, always use your own tried and true garlic, grown right in your garden. Or, if you need to buy some, get your seed garlic from trusted local growers, from farmers market vendors, or from reputable garden centres that specifically sell planting varieties, not the stuff meant for cooking. Life's full of unexpected twists, and sometimes, even with the best intentions, we just can't get everything done on time. Whether you were stuck at work, away on a trip, or the weather simply turned against you, suddenly you realise the optimal planting window has slammed shut. It's November, biting frosts are just around the corner, and your garlic bulbs are still patiently waiting in their basket. What do? Throw in the towel and wait for spring? Not so fast. There's still a good chance to salvage the situation, but you'll need to adjust your approach slightly. If you've missed the ideal timing, but the ground hasn't frozen solid just yet, planting is still an option. But this comes with two crucial adjustments. First, you'll need to plant significantly deeper than you normally would. Forget the conventional wisdom of planting 3 times the bulb's height. Your primary goal now is to get those cloves far away from the freezing top layer of soil. Don't be shy. Aim for holes 10, even up to 15 centimetres deep. This deeper planting helps compensate for the lost time for root development and creates an essential thermal buffer. Sure, your garlic might have a bit more work to do pushing through the soil in spring, but that's a far better outcome than it simply freezing solid. Second, and equally critical, after such a late planting, you absolutely must increase the mulch layer. While 5-10 centimetres might be sufficient under normal circumstances, in this scenario, don't be stingy. Cover your bed with a generous thick blanket, we're talking 20 to 30 centimetres, of dry leaves, straw, or peat. This winter blanket will significantly slow down the ground's freezing process, giving your belated garlic at least some fighting chance to establish roots before severe frosts truly set in. Certainly these are emergency measures and your harvest might not be as bountiful as planned, but this is a genuine way to salvage the situation and ensure you have at least some garlic come next year. Now let's talk about what truly makes a difference. The biggest aha moment in growing winter garlic comes down to 2 crucial points that many people often overlook. First, it's resisting the temptation to eat your best harvest. Your largest, most beautiful heads shouldn't end up on your dinner plate. They should go straight back into the ground. It might seem counterintuitive, but this is precisely how you ensure genetic improvement of your garlic year after year. You're essentially carrying out selective breeding, ensuring only the strongest continue to propagate. The second pivotal moment is realizing you're not just planting a clove, you're tucking it in for its long winter nap. All your work in September is dedicated to creating the perfect conditions for this hibernation. The right depth, protective mulch, healthy soil. These aren't just agricultural techniques. They are its blanket and nutrient reserve, preparing that tiny plant to survive the winter freezes and burst into vigorous growth with the first rays of spring sun. Those who grasp this stop making frustrating mistakes and achieve yields that make all their neighbours green with envy. So to recap, the success of your future garlic harvest isn't determined in spring, but right now in September. Choosing the right location, thorough soil preparation, selecting quality planting material, and ensuring correct depth and timing, these are the keys to success. They might seem simple, yet they are incredibly crucial steps. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new episodes. Now, a question for you. What are your personal secrets for growing garlic? Or perhaps you faced unusual challenges when planting it in the fall. Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going.